Welcome to the Resilient Mindset Podcast, an exciting new podcast by Resilience Queen, Justine Martin. Justine is the owner and founder of the Resilient Mindset, a division of the Justine Martin Corporation. Justine draws on her years of experience and knowledge consulting with clients to develop and sustain a positive mindset. Focused on igniting your passion, purpose and power, follow the Resilience Queen each week as she delves into the mind of her guests, exploring fascinating stories and inspiring journeys.
Mae Whittick is a spiritual life coach and a creator of Higher Energetic Resonance podcast. Her conversations, tools for the awakening, and her inspirations. Carol recognizes the shift that is occurring for humanity and knows that all her life experiences have led her up to serving during this time. She's committed to demystifying spirituality so people know it as simply an expanded awareness of who they truly are, and then use that awareness to create a more profound life experience. Welcome, listeners, to the Resilience Mindset podcast. Today, I've got Carol. How are you, Carol?
I'm really great, Justine. It's great to be with you, and I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Likewise. So let's get into it. What does resilience mean to you?
Resilience to me just means the ability to return to a level of equilibrium. I think there are moments when our life gets put off track and we start to go through turbulence or trauma or pain or upset, and everything that we would consider to be our everyday and normal, even though I don't like that word, but, you know, just like the run of the mill things that we're able to manage almost on autopilot, then actually really become things that sometimes we can't manage, or we have to put aside our routines. So for me, resilience is the ability to kind of weather the storm and be able to get back to that, but also be able to take the lessons from what we've been through, and kind of return back to what is normal for us with a new, invigorated way of being. And also, and it's hard when you've been through a challenging thing, but a level of gratitude for what you've experienced as well.
And I like to think of it as a rubber band. So, you can stretch yourself out through that adversity. And when you're back to your normality, so to speak, it's still a rubber band, but it's shaped just slightly different.
Yes, yeah.
Just slightly different, and never returns back to the original shape, because each adversity that we go through shapes us differently.
For sure. Yeah, I can definitely agree with that.
So talking about adversities, what's one that you've faced, and how did you draw on your resilience to cope?
I'd say the most recent resilience that the recent adversity that really kind of pushed me to the limits was having to make the decision to separate from abusive situation. And you know, it's never easy to decide that you're going to cut yourself off from a situation. It's harder when or for me, I just felt that it was more difficult this time around, because it wasn't like a partner where you can kind of, you know, still return back to your own support network, as it were, relationships support network. This actually involved family. So in order to kind of separate from the abuse that you were receiving in the family, it actually meant that you're separating from the family, you know, because when you're in situations where there's someone that's abusive and you've made the decision to step away, often is the case that the person that steps away is not really understood. The person who's committing the abuse tends to be able to create a veneer of a saint almost, and is able to then vilify.
Most of the time they're a narcissist.
Well, yeah.
That's their MO.
Yeah, absolutely. So that basically was it, you know, and what I experienced through that was finally making the decision that if I wanted to have any level of life, or kind of like build my life in a way that I wanted to, I had to move away from this, because I'd allowed it to happen. You know, I'd allowed this abuse to just go on all the way through my life. And I could see I'd kind of got to the end of my rope, as it were, going, if I continue to allow this to happen, then the only way that I'm going to fit into this is to just chop off the parts of myself that's triggering this person, which is basically pretty much all of it, and be small and controllable and unseen. And also because they had the voice of the family, so they were able to kind of signal a version of events that just wasn't me. So with me stepping away from that meant that I had to really come to terms with the fact that I'd walked away from everything, maybe, but also things that I was just never going to get that support, because also, as is the pattern with narcissists, like, you step away and try and build your life, but then they also go out, and the kind of the weaker links of your support system outside of that then get targeted, and a lot of them fell. So it wasn't just walking away from that abusive situation, it was also realizing that some of the people that I thought were long-term friends and support systems were not, and they were easily toppled off, with me trying to explain myself. So that was
yourself for something that you didn't do, that was caused to you. I can so relate to this. I was in a domestic violence relationship, and had bones broken from it. So it is very relatable, and I'm sure there's a few listeners out there today that this is hitting home. No pun intended there. In relationships, whether it's family or a partner that you're with, or even friends.
And it really cleared the slate. So I'm a relatively kind of solitary person anyway, but then to know that the few people that you kind of loved and trusted over a course of years that you'd chosen as your family outside of your family was so easily influenced by someone, when you were going, listen, the reason that I've made this decision is because this person isn't necessarily how they present themselves, and they just didn't want to hear you on that. So it, in some ways, that additional, I think a lot of the time the term is like flying monkeys, that additional kind of support system, it's another level of abuse and hurt. So there was a deep despondency and kind of triggering all of those old abandonment wounds and all of that shame and all of that hurt. And then during the course of time, just having a lot of flashbacks of situations, when you are in a situation with a narcissistic person, they have a very manipulative, gaslighting way of saying things that you don't always often realize are happening in the moment, but you know that they're wrong. And then when you're out of it and you're just kind of like going, okay, what just happened? So moments would kind of replay themselves.
Questioning your own sanity.
Of course.
I used to question it all the time. It'd be like, no, that's not what I said. Or, no, we didn't do that. Like, they were making up things that we'd actually done or I'd done. And it's like, no, I didn't say that. I didn't do that. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. And I'm like, no, I didn't. And yeah, you really question what your sanity is, and are you having memory issues, and did I do that? What's reality? What isn't reality? And huge red flags and warning signs, but they suck you in. And it's unless you've been in that situation, it's really, really hard to describe. It is hard to describe.
Yeah, because it's so subtle and nuanced and cunning, and the way that it's created, and also because it was a family member, it had been someone who'd been in my life, like pretty much all of it. So, it, like, you kind of just think, well, it's my family, or maybe that's how families go, or maybe I'm making things up, maybe I'm being oversensitive, which is one of the things that I got described as being like, you're just being too sensitive, it's like, but this doesn't feel right. And I know my feelings, and I usually trust my intuition on most levels, but this doesn't feel right, until that last few weeks when I started to really just kind of pull myself out and observe what was happening, and just listen to the voice in my head going, this isn't right. This is abusive. and it wasn't, and I'd always heard about that kind of empath narcissist dynamic, it kind of floating around online. I'm like, I don't know if that's this. And then I explained it to
They
someone.
thrive. Narcissists
Yeah.
thrive on empaths.
Yeah.
Because the majority of empaths as well have been through past trauma. So they're vulnerable people.
Yeah.
Before they even step outside the door, then all of a sudden you throw a narcissist in there and they just suck the life out of you. They'll love bomb you to start with. So I'm talking like partners here.
Yeah.
They will love bomb you to start with and tick all the boxes under the world. And, you don't tend to, you've got blinkers on, you don't tend to see those red flags. And then little bit, subtly, little bit by little bit, they just then start working away at you. And look, I don't think they consciously even realize that's what they're doing in a lot of the cases, especially if they've been doing that pattern of behavior most of their life and they've never been called up on it. Everyone else is at fault. They're never at fault on anything. That grandeur of, oh no, I'm not wrong, is huge.
Yeah.
So how did you draw on your resilience to cope? So brave of you to walk away from the family, but how did you do that?
There was just a realization that because everything that I did was being attacked, like the way that I worked, the way that I dressed, the way that I sat, the way that I spoke, the fact that I was crazy. It was like there was like nothing that I could do. I was on edge all the time, and it was getting to the point where I'm just waiting for the next shoe to drop, So, and this is a family member as well. It's not even a partner. So, but then as soon as like other people come in the room, it's all sweetness and light, and you wouldn't have known that anything was happening. So for me, I just I needed this person because I was going through a rough time. I needed some help. I needed somewhere to stay, and they enjoyed seeing me at my lowest. And it was the realization of at that point where I thought, and I was like so grateful for them for helping me out, and yet in order to, so there was, we just couldn't build a relationship from my gratitude. They couldn't see that I was grateful, but also I was in a low point. So, you feel a bit ashamed, and also, but you want to still be able to communicate. They didn't see that. They saw me at my lowest and thought that was the perfect time to grind the healing. And I just thought, well, if you can't see me, if you're getting so much joy out of me being in the gutter, I need to leave. So I literally just packed up everything and just, for a few months was just kind of staying at friends' places if I could, and moving around and just trying to get myself together. That it was just me just jumping out at the last minute with the last bit of strength that I had, really. And then just allowing myself to fall apart. After that, it really was that.
How have you rebuilt from falling apart?
There was a period in time where I fought it for a good few months, and then I accepted it. It was in the acceptance of this is what it is, in the surrender of this is where you are, in reminding myself that I was a resilient person. And it was interesting because in one of their attacks at me, or their snide comments to me, they're like, man, you're resilient, and it was not said to me as a compliment. It was like, I just, I've been trying to punch you down for so long, but you're still there. Yeah. So I had to remember that even, that I had bounced back, and all the things that I had that I needed, even at that time, I was like, I had virtually no money. I didn't really have anywhere solid to live or anything like that. But what I had was my ideas and my creativity, which is one of the things that I'd always relied on and worked from, which had been always one of the things that had triggered them, because I followed my dreams and they did not.
Yeah. I grew up, my mum was a narcissist. And so that pattern of behavior of her being a narcissist caused so much trauma. and that I then associated trauma and love as the same thing. And
Right.
so for a very, very long period of time, up until a couple of years ago, every relationship I had then been in was with a narcissist
Mm.
because of that association of trauma or love and me being an empath and all of that. So I read a book called Healing the Daughters of Narcissistic Mothers. Will I Ever Be Good Enough? Is the book title, Healing the Daughters of Narcissistic Mothers. I can't remember who the author was, and that was a game changer. Now, the
Wow.
only thing for me was I never got to put a lot of it into practice because my mum passed away 26 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But it explained so much in my life as to, my childhood, my teenage years, my early 20s until she passed away when I was 26. And the relationship with my brother and how the relationship with my mum and my brother was totally different than the relationship that I had with her, because he could never do anything wrong and I could never do anything right. And this went on for the whole time that, she was alive. And yeah, this book was such a game changer for me mentally. It made a huge impact and a huge difference in my life and dealing with it. But it wasn't until I got my arm broken,
Mm.
and that was the fifth major relationship I'd had go down the toilet, so to speak, that I went, I need to take action. What's the common denominator in all these relationships? And I went, well, I'm the common denominator in the relationship. I'm the one that's going to have to change, and recognizing that it was me that needed to change, rather than trying to get someone else to change their behavior because they've had bad behavior and had treated me poorly. That was never going to happen. But it was like, well, if I want to stop being in relationships like this, then the grounding thing here is me, and or the common denominator here is me. And I went off and sought counselling on, okay, why am I doing this repeat offending, in picking the wrong people to be in my life from that. So, and that made a huge difference. I think you can't gain resilience by yourself. You need to ask for support and help. Would you agree, Carol?
Yeah, and the thing is, even though I didn't go into therapy, I went into lots of into different I delved into my spiritual practice, and I found a group that I could work with to
And that's still
build,
support.
build and support. So yeah, it wasn't just me kind of working it out on my own, but it was really deepening that connection with myself, that one that had like every now and come up again and was reminding me, like, this is wrong, this is abuse, have a look at what you're seeing, like, face the facts. Because I think a lot of the time you don't want to face the facts, and I just came away from that and allowed things to just fall apart, and also allowed people to help me as well, who wanted to listen. They were few and far between, because
Grieving, Carol. You would have been grieving, you've slipped away from what's supposed to be a loving, nurturing environment.
yeah,
And you would have been grieving that that reality wasn't true, and then having to go through all the grieving process as well. And that's with, any adversity, people think that grieving is only something happens when someone dies, but it's not. There's so many different types of grief. But they all go through, those 7 steps to get out onto the other side. I grieved when I was diagnosed with MS. I grieved the life that I had and that I knew was going to be entirely differently in the blink of an eye, it all just changing. You would have grieved as well. And then getting to the point of acceptance. Some people can do that quite quickly. Other people, it takes, years to get to that point when they've been through grief. And grief also doesn't mean that it can't come back up at some point
of
in
course.
time. And it can be years later. and then all of a sudden something will trigger you, and then the grief is still there. Acceptance doesn't mean that you like something. I think people think that, in particularly when you're diagnosed with something, I accept that I have MS, but I fucking hate that I have MS.
Right.
All right. So you can accept, but don't have to like it. There's a huge difference.
Yeah. I'm aligned with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So who are your role models in resilience, Carol?
Do you know, I mean, look, a lot of the time you can look out into the world and go like celebrities, but things we don't really know who these people are and what their lives are and what are presented. But when it comes to real world resilience, like I mentioned just before we came on, I've just been on a retreat this weekend. And it was just a small group of women, so 4 participants and 1 facilitator. And there was one woman that I met there, and I was just in awe of her. And her name's Suze, and she's probably in her mid to late 60s, but she's been through so much in terms of her physical health. She's had a lot of she's had chronic arthritis, I think, as a lifelong thing, and you can see on her body that she's been through major surgery. Pretty much every limb there's been some sort of invasive internal surgery that she's had. And just hearing a piece of her story over what she'd been through over the past couple of years, especially when she'd gone through surgery and she literally couldn't move. She was in bed and she had to have people come in and dress her and feed her and take her to the toilet, and all of that involved, and not all the time. And it wasn't always a female that was doing it for her, so she had to allow herself to really be that humble. But then when you meet her, she just exudes all of this kind of positivity and this energy and this joy for life and this gratitude for it. And in the same way, she said, I'm in pain the majority of the time. I might have to accept that my full release won't come until I die, but while I'm here, I'm going to live. And
well, you only die once, but you live every day.
Yeah. But she just had so much, because I meet so many people that are like, oh my God, I'm getting older, and just complain about things. I'm like, but you're given another day. Why are you complaining? So for me, anyone who just finds joy in the everyday, joy in the mundane, joy in the simple things, and is able to kind of laugh at themselves, accept what's going on, be truthful and say, like you say, I don't want to be going through these health challenges really, but are still able to find something, still want to develop themselves, still want to learn. That is like more inspiring to me than anything else. It's like anyone who can just find something to really create out of seemingly nothing. Those are the people that give me inspiration to want to do more, whatever it is that they do. That the passion, people who have passion for life.
So, Carol, what do you do to practice your own self-care and personal wellness?
So from a physical aspect, I try and make sure that I'm moving around every day, that I do some sort of exercise. So some days I'll try and do something that kind of builds the strength in my body, and so I can feel stronger in my body. Other times I might feel that I need to just stretch. And then I always like to go and do a walk and kind of meander a little bit around nature and things like that. I enjoy music, so I enjoy singing and playing music. So I always like to incorporate that as well. And also some sort of spiritual practice. So sometimes I go deeply into it and I have a very kind of prescribed practice, but for the most part, it's just contemplation and meditation and whatever that may look like. Sometimes it is sitting in the same space and really closing my eyes down. Other times it's on my walks, allowing my mind to just really go over what it is that I feel that I'm challenged with or faced with. And those are the things that really just cultivate the knowing within me and the trust that I have that I'm not on my own here and that I'm getting guidance, and it keeps me open to receive answers to things that I may need to do or people that I may need to speak to. So, and that was the thing that came to me when I'm like, this is your situation. You need to accept the situation. And by accepting the situation meant that I wasn't fighting the reality of it. And
Yeah.
that's when I could just, and nothing changed. It wasn't like, oh, I accept it, and the fairy came and like swished me around and changed everything. It was just like me being in exactly the same situation. I was like, let me now be a voyeur of this situation, not be feeling it so much, not be wanting to complain about it so much, because this is going to be a story that I will tell in the future of how I got through it. And I was able to then see it from that point of view. This is going to be a story that I'm going to tell. So the sooner I accept it and start to kind of see myself through it, then I'll open myself up to making it, like really bring in the details of what I'm experiencing, as opposed to like, oh my God, let me just really catch all the details of the things that are happening here so that I can tell a better story when I feel that time has passed enough for me to kind of go, that happened to me.
Yeah. Amazing stuff. What's a favorite movie that features a person's inner strength? What's your favorite movie?
Oh, wow. I'm trying to think if it's her inner strength. The movie that comes to mind is Sunset Boulevard, and I'm not thinking that there's the classic version, and I'm just trying to see how there's the inner strength in like Norma Desmond, I love black and white movies, so I'm just trying to think how that would be. I mean, she just kind of sees herself as this movie star. She never wants to let go of the person that she created for herself, that kind of the pinnacle of her expression, even when everything around her was, the crowds had gone, the dust was kind of settling on the mansion. She had Playboy, she went back to the old theatre, and everyone, people still saw her as that, and then the newer generation didn't recognize herself. So kind of seeing the inner strength there is that, sometimes I think you have to ignore reality and stay on track with your vision. So that's how I think I would say that's how she represented her own inner strength. And she had a vision for herself that was devoid of reality. I mean, it kind of ended tragically, but even when she was walking to her justice, she was still in the lights, walking on stage.
Yeah. The previous guest that I interviewed, Bill, so you're like chalk and cheese, because his was Shrek.
Oh, wow.
I've had some doozies in the last year doing this. I'm always blown away by everyone's comments, answers. What job position have you loved the best, and why?
Oh, wow. Um, the thing that comes to mind is, and it wasn't that I enjoyed it. I can't say that I loved it. I've never loved any of my jobs because I'm just not the best of employees. But the job that comes to mind is when I was a waitress, and one, I learned, it started to get me out of my shell a lot because I was quite shy. And be able to kind of meet people and speak to people and be able to kind of build up a rapport, because they're there and you're there to take that order and give them a good time and all this kind of thing. So that, I would say, the period of time that I worked in hospitality really, I think, shaped me very well in terms of building my character, but also building the way that I was able to interact and understand people in a very short space of time, and be able to read how they wanted to be treated within seconds. You go to a table, you introduce yourself, you say, okay, how can I help you? And then in their response to that, in them telling you what they want to order, or whether you come back or not, you get an idea of the the mood of that person and how they needed to be treated. So I would say that I learned a lot through doing that job. And also you learn a bit of sales. I mean, after that, I went into lots of different sales roles, but it all stemmed from there. Like my understanding of how to meet and greet people and then how they wanted to be treated, and learn that in a very short space of time, would have come from being a waitress.
And reading people.
Yes.
I was a waitress a long time ago.
Yeah.
Back in the last century, I was a waitress. So there you go.
Wow. Oh, amazing.
Yeah. Okay, what guides you to find purpose and direction, Carol?
Guides me. I would say spirit, having conversations with myself, just wanting also this desire to just see how much I can create in my life, how where I can take myself, not just physically, but in, how good can I be at all of these things? How far from my starting point can I get to? How rich can I make my life? How many different people can I meet? What kind of tapestry can I create? And also because I love the idea of telling stories, that, when I feel that I've got to, just got a few days left in my life, that I'm able to just tell some really good stories and have some really good experiences. So it's the desire to just express myself in the fullest way, I think, is what's pulling me forward all the time.
You should write a book.
Yes. There's been one for a while. Do you?
Yes.
Is that you?
Yes. We'll chat on camera about that one. Yes. I help people write their memoirs and self-help books and
Fantastic.
publish them through Morpheus Publishing. So that might be something that you can consider into the future, Carol. You never know.
Well, I think it's closer than the future. It's because
we'll definitely talk after here.
Yeah.
See, there's a reason why you're meant to be on the podcast show today.
Yes.
Tell me about 3 most influential people in your life and how they've impacted you.
Firstly, I would say my mother. She's passed now. Both my parents have passed. And she was challenged with mental illness throughout her life for as long as, I was...
you can remember.
She was my mum, but for as long as I can remember, she was challenged with mental illness. She went in and out of psychiatric treatment. But what I got from her is her resilience, despite the way that she was treated by the medical system, despite the way that she was treated by her family, and the stigmas around those kind of things. She kept going, she, even when she was, in her late 70s, well, she lived to 77, but throughout her 70s, she thought nothing of going back to college, and she'd be the woman with all the kind of the mixed match outfit with a, like, she'd roll in with a book, a kind of her trolley of books, and sit with a group of 20-year-olds because she wanted to learn something, even despite what people would say about her. So I've got that kind of thing of you just don't give up despite what's going on, and all the women in my family as well have really kind of got that kind of spunk about them, even though they express it in different ways. Even though sometimes they kind of get a little bit defeated by life, they keep going. So she would be one. My godmother would be another. She just recently had her 80th birthday, and I went to her 80th birthday on a Saturday. And what was beautiful about it is there were 300 people that turned up in that room. I know. And and she was like talking about,
I wasn't paying for the catering on that one.
And it was fully catered as well. It was a massive It was a massive space. We had like, a full Caribbean experience of food, and the music was there, and the room was massive, and everyone was wearing like green and gold, the Jamaican flag
Yeah.
colours and everything like that. And it was just great because I don't see her that often, but she sends a like kind of Bible text to everybody every morning, so it's really nice to get that check-in from her and her prayers. But it was one to be able to see if I can get to 80 and people will willingly give up their Saturday night. 300 people will willingly give up their Saturday night, adhere to a dress code, and be happy to be in the room with me. That is, that's something to aim for. Because like I said, I'm a very solitary person. So, I've just got a handful of people. But she has had such an impact on multiple generations throughout the church that she's kind of served in over those years, that they were like, of course, why would we not? Family flew from all over the world to see her. Like, family flew from Canada to
A
Ensign.
100-year-old birthday going to be. If that's what she had on her 80th.
But like double the space, we're going to have to like book out Wembley Stadium or something.
You'll
So
there. You'll get the
yeah.
king there.
Invite him. Of course, yeah, you do. You get the telegram, don't you?
William by then, but you'll have a king there.
Who knows if they hang on to it? That's a whole controversy in itself, isn't it? Really.
Well, Charlie's in his mid-70s, isn't he? So somewhere around there.
But the Queen kind of kept going till 90, was it? I don't know. I can't remember the age.
90 something when she died. But yeah. Who knows? Who knows in this world? And so, do you have a third person or just those two?
I would say just those two, because like I said, we get presented with public figures, so it's always interesting to hear their stories. But I like, as much as I've grown up, like, admiring people in the public space, I really honor people that I've seen who've gone through the grit of real life, and had to do things on a regular way.
That their stories are real.
Yes, yeah.
Not media manufactured and stuff. Yeah. So, Carol, if you could go back and give your 18-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Not him. This is easy.
Yes.
Oh gosh.
I like that answer. The last podcast I said persistence rather than perfection, but I think I like, not him.
Yeah, because I got entangled in an entanglement, and when you're young and your eyes are kind of big and everything like that,
And
it was like
on.
Yeah, and it was just, it took a long time to extract myself from that. So not him, Carol.
Yeah, that happened to me, but I ended up having a child. So I was stuck with not him for a very long time.
Yeah.
If only we could turn back time. If you could live anywhere in the world, Carol, where would it be? We're going to do some fun, quirky questions now.
I'm really thinking about that at the moment because I've done UK all my life and I've travelled all over. It would be somewhere. I'm kind of toying with the idea of, like, my friends moved to Portugal, and I'm kind of liking the kind of the temperature there as well. The food seems better, and I've been there a couple of times. So maybe Portugal, maybe Spain. One, because I understand Spanish, and the Spanish and Portuguese are kind of very similar, so it wouldn't be so hard for me to kind of pick the language up as well. So maybe around there as well. I'm not sure that I'm going to stay in the UK that long. I keep oscillating between I'm staying, no, I'm going.
Go for 6 months.
Yeah.
Good
idea.
What's some books you'd recommend to my audience and why?
Let me think of some books that I've recently read. I would say anything by Caroline Myss as well. She's a medical intuitive, I think she calls herself, but also she talks very much about archetypes and very much about just really understanding the soul. And she's what I really like about her is sometimes you have these she talks tough, but in a lovingly tough kind of way. So anything by her, I've really appreciated her work. Gosh, it's hard to call on books because at the moment I listen to more podcasts than I read books, even though I've got Audible. So I forget the ones that I don't know.
That's
Also,
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I can ask another question. We've
Sure,
got
sure.
questions here. What's one question you'd wish that I'd asked you, and how would you have answered it?
I love your questions because they're really getting my brain.
Everyone says that, and they're different to what's on normal podcasts. So.
Yeah, no, they're fantastic questions, and they're getting me to think as well. What question would I have liked to have been asked? What's my favorite color? I suppose something basic like that.
Color, Carol?
Do you know what my favorite color seems to be? Gold. And it's kind of happened on a very subconscious level, because normally I would have said I like kind of things that veer between like pinks and purples and all that kind of stuff. But like I said, I've just been away over the past weekend, and as I was packing everything and putting things in my bag, I realized that my notebook was gold, that the pencil case was gold, my purse was gold, the my suitcase was gold, or champagne tones. And I was just kind of looking, going like, well, when did that happen? Because I don't consciously go around going, I want gold stuff. But then even like then looking around my room, I'm seeing there's a lot of gold, like gold trimming on things. That so somehow gold has kind of infused itself into my life. And I'm not really sure how it's happened, because I would never have said that.
There's
I
an
do.
old Japanese proverb, right? That they never throw anything away, and that they fix broken cups and bowls with gold.
Yeah.
And I wear only gold and lots of
Mm.
gold, and so I like to think that that's why I wear lots of gold. Is it fills in the cracks.
That's an amazing thing. Yeah. Thank you
Look
for
it
that.
up.
Yeah, I know exactly. I think there's a meme that goes around where they've got a little kind of vase, and they've just shown how they've filled the vein in with the gold as well. So I know precisely what you're talking about. But the fact that you're saying that now, and I'm, because I'm just looking at my desk and like there's a gold thing, there's a gold frame, there's just so much gold around me. But I would never have normally said, oh, that's gold. Even that little butterfly at the back there is gold. And I bought that on a whim. I was just walking down the road, and it was just like after my mum died, because I always used to see butterflies and think of my dad, who'd passed years and years back. And so, you're processing all of that. And I was just kind of walking down the road. It was in a charity shop window. And I was just kind of walking down the road, and then I just stopped and turned and went, what is that? I need to get it. And just ran in and got it. It was super cheap as well, like £5 or something. But it just really reminded me of her. So, and that's all gold. And then it's on her. She used to crochet all the time, so it's just on a piece of crochet that covers the printer. But so it's just like having her on my shoulder, especially when I do podcasts and recordings. Yeah.
So, listeners, if you want to see Carol's butterfly in the background, just hop onto Justine Martin Corporation YouTube channel, and you'll be able to look at the vlog of this, and you'll be able to see both her and I over my shoulder. Can you see my shoulder?
Your art.
Yeah, one of my paintings that I did, and I'm having the hallway repainted at the moment. So every room's got artwork. There's so much artwork sitting where it's not meant to be at the moment until the hallway on Friday is painted. So can't wait to get my house back in order on that one. What was your favourite subject in school?
Physics.
Wow,
weirdly
was
it? Yeah, I just really love physics, because I just always wanted to know why and how, the delving of anything. And I enjoyed English, and I've kept writing throughout my life, but the thing that was a fascination to me was physics.
Wow, wouldn't have thought that.
Yeah. No, I know, but it was.
Okay, pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
I used to, but I'm older now, and I'm nah.
Oh,
I'm like, and I used.
how old are you, Carol?
I'm 50.
Really? You do
Yeah,
not
yeah.
look 50. I would
But
not have.
what's it supposed to look like? You know,
I
that's the thing. It's
Yeah.
like, what is it supposed to look like? I'm kind of like computing it in my brain now. It's like, this is where you are, you know, which is why I'm kind of really wanting to kind of
Well, I remember when I was a child, 50 looked like purple rinse in your hair.
right. Yeah. I
Right?
don't know what's
Purple
happened.
rinse.
Yeah.
Now 20-year-olds are doing that by choice.
Yeah.
Over
Yeah.
here in Australia, young girls are going grey. My daughter spends hundreds of dollars on having grey hair. And I'm like, sweetie, just give it time. It'll happen naturally. And I spend hundreds of dollars not being grey, getting rid of my white highlights. But I would
Yeah.
never pick 50, ever.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to remind myself that I'm here. But I'm grateful that I made
You're a
it, you know. I was
70s
like
baby then.
72, yes.
I'm 71.
Are you? See, I,
Yeah.
I just like didn't even know. Like, it's hard. Like, I don't know what age anybody is nowadays.
I have a
You know,
30-year-old
it's
son.
wow.
Yeah. And
Good
a
for you.
26-year-old daughter and 7 grandkids to throw in the mix as well. So
7 grandchildren. Congratulations.
that's where the
Wow.
white highlights are from. They're from I love them all to bits, but they do
Good
cost
for
me a bit of
you.
money. Okay, moving right along. Tea, coffee, hot chocolate, or wine?
Coffee every now and again. Herbal tea.
What's your
Um,
favourite herbal tea? I'm a big herbal tea drinker, that's all.
oh right. Okay. Recently, I've been veering between a nice green tea, and I've got a really nice chamomile blend, chamomile flowers at the moment. So I'm really enjoying those on a herbal tea. I'm because I don't drink and I don't really buy kind of pops and sodas.
I don't need
So I kind of invest in my money, my
good
beverage money
tea.
goes into tea. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
same. I've got a really nice spearmint and licorice at the moment.
Mm,
And licorice tea is really good if you've got sugar cravings
yeah.
with licorice
That
root. But you can't have it if you've got high blood pressure because it'll raise your blood pressure.
oh
So
I
you've got to be
don't.
careful with some herbal teas that you have.
Yeah,
What's your
powerful.
favourite food, Carol?
Um Avocados.
Oh, yum.
I've
Yum.
just been on retreat and we had the most amazing food, and um, she created this life-giving bread that I meant to get. I'm not going to have to get the recipe of it with just pure seeds and nuts and everything. And I don't normally eat breakfast, but she'd done like this next level avocado toast, and the avocados were perfect, perfect, perfect. I
Yum.
love avocados.
Are avocados expensive over there, Carol?
Depends where you get them from. You know, if you can go to the supermarket. The last batch that I got, and I just went, I paid a couple of pounds for, and I think I got out of the 2 avocados a good quarter.
See,
Yeah.
we last summer we had an abundance of avocados here in Australia, and we were
Mm.
paying 99 cents,
Wow.
which is very cheap.
Yeah.
Very, very, very cheap. Um, they're
And
now sitting at about $1.80, $1.90, I think. Over
oh
here,
gosh.
we used to pay $4 or $5 for them over here, but the avocado farmers planted more avocados, so they're not so much a luxury item to have anymore. Avocado
Yeah.
on toast over here in restaurants is huge with a couple of poached eggs on top.
Mm,
Just
mm.
saying.
And
Anyway, I'm
I
hungry.
plant the seeds as well. So I've got a couple of plants that are just burgeoning out in my window as well. Yeah. So I planted them ages ago. So
Oh, look at that.
yeah,
That's
my
awesome. So,
avocados. Yeah.
listeners, what we're actually looking at is a couple of little avocado plants.
Yes.
And we know where the avocado went, don't we, Carol? That those seeds came out of. Okay. I did what's the one question I'd asked you, didn't I?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, yeah.
I've been so enthralled. I don't know where, and because you're my third one today. So, yeah, well, I think we've nearly come to the end of today's podcast. So, Carol, where can listeners find you online and how can they contact you?
Sure. The best place is to come to my website because it's like the hub of everything and you can see what I'm up to and what I'm all about. So that's carolmaewhittick.com. I'll spell that. It's CarolMaewhittick.com.
And all Carol's details will be in her bio, listed here on the podcast as well as on the vlogcast. Well, Carol, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to interview you today and be on the Resilience Mindset podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. And also thank you for the amazing questions. I like them.
No worries. And remember, listeners, you guys know the drill by now. Stay resilient. Until next time.
With over 11 years public speaking expertise, Justine thrives on delivering a powerful and empowering keynote to audiences of all sizes. From a packed room of 500 people to an intimate gathering of 50 people, Justine will command the room with her inspiring journey and engaging anecdotes. Email hello@justinemartin.com.au to book Justine for your next event. We hope you enjoyed the Resilience Mindset podcast. Remember to subscribe to the podcast to get your weekly fix listening to Resilience Queen Justine Martin. Follow Justine on social media at Resilience Mindset or log on to justinemartin.com.au. And until next time, remember, life doesn't get easier or more forgiving. We get stronger and more resilient.